Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're going to dive into something pretty radical. It's a framework that challenges some of the most fundamental ideas we have about mental health. We're talking about moving way beyond simple labels to actually look at the dynamic forces that are shaping our inner world.
All right, so let's just start with a really provocative question, one that sits right at the heart of this whole new perspective. What if mental illness isn't an illness at all? What if those states we call depression or anxiety, what if they aren't some fixed disease you have, but are actually just patterns? Patterns happening within a system that, can actually be understood and even rebalanced.
Okay, so to really get this, let's first take a look at the model most of us probably grew up with. You might have heard it called the broken brain model. And we're going to talk about the pretty serious challenges it's facing right now.
Yeah, look at that number. It's stark, isn't it? Zero. After 40 years of research, that's decades, of searching for a clear biological marker, that chemical imbalance we've all heard about, to explain most psychiatric diagnoses, they found exactly zero reliable ones. I mean, the data just isn't there.
And this lack of evidence, it's so profound that it's led even the former head of the National Institute of Mental Health, a guy named Stephen Hyman, to question the very categories we use. He called them an unintended epistemic prison. That's a fancy way of saying we've built a prison out of our own ideas, a way of thinking that's actually trapped us instead of helping us understand.
So, this is the really crucial shift right here. We're moving away from seeing the mind as a broken machine with a fixed disease, a chemical problem that you need to correct. Instead, we're starting to see it as a dynamic, living system. The focus isn't just on the symptoms anymore. It's on the conditions both inside you and in your environment that are actually creating those symptoms.
Okay, to make this idea even clearer, let's use a new metaphor that I think really works well. So forget the broken machine. Instead, I want you to imagine your inner life as a river. You see, the old model, the conventional one, it's always asking, what's wrong with the water, right? It's assuming the water itself, the person, is inherently flawed. But this new model, it asks a completely different and I think much better question. What has happened to the banks? It forces you to look at the context, the support systems, all the forces at play. Because guess what? The water itself isn't damaged. All right, so now we get to the core of this framework. It's actually built around a really elegant, surprisingly simple equation that helps us break down our inner world into three fundamental forces. These are the things that shape our entire experience. Okay, here it is, the emergence equation. Now, I know it looks a little intimidating with all the symbols, but trust me, it's actually a super intuitive way to map what's going on inside us. Emergence, that's just a word for the creation of new, healthier patterns. It comes from how these three forces interact. So let's break them down one by one.
First up, we've got G for ground. And if we're sticking with our river metaphor, this is the riverbank. It's basically your container. It's everything that holds you and gives you stability. We're talking about things like physical safety, a stable home, consistent relationships, even something as basic as a regulated nervous system from getting enough sleep. Okay, next is that little symbol, gamma. It stands for reflection. Think of this as the clarity of the water in our river. It's your ability to be self-aware. Your capacity to kind of step back and observe your own experience without being totally swept away by it. It's the difference between saying, I am anxious, and I notice I'm feeling anxious.
And last but not least, we have delta squared. This one's all about the force of the current. It's the sheer intensity of what's moving through you. And this isn't just bad stuff like trauma or grief. It's also creative energy, big ideas, the full power of your lived experience. It's basically the raw, powerful energy of life itself.
Okay, but here's the thing. Just having these three forces, ground, reflection, and that powerful current, that's not the whole story. What really matters is how they're all working together. And that relationship is measured by something called H, the harmonic coefficient. Think of it as a score for how in tune or out of tune your system is. So let's think of this H value like an orchestra. When H is at 1, it's perfect. That's a flow state. All the musicians are playing together in beautiful functional harmony. But when H gets close to 0, that's what's called flat dissonance. It's like deep depression or anhedonia, where nothing resonates, the music is just flat. And if H goes negative, well, that's destructive interference. The instruments are clashing. It can lead to fragmentation, psychosis, or even suicidal states.
And this right here brings us to such a critical insight. Think about this. Why is it that one person can experience this huge surge of energy and have a massive creative breakthrough, while another person, with the exact same intensity, has a complete breakdown? Same force, totally different outcomes.
Why?
The answer, according to this whole framework, often comes down to one single powerful factor: ground. The person with a strong container, a safe home, good relationships, a healthy body, they can handle that intense current. They can integrate it. But the person whose riverbanks are weak, who doesn't have that ground, they fragment. The river overflows. And this leads us to what I think is the most empowering, the most hopeful part of this entire model. It's an idea that completely reframes how we think about our own potential and maybe even what the whole point of therapy really is. Okay, look at this, the capacity equation. All it's saying is that the capacity you actually express in the world is your natural, inborn capacity minus your constraints, all the things holding you back. This is huge because it means the question is no longer, what is wrong with me? The question becomes, what is constraining me? That is a much more powerful and hopeful question, don't you think? And it's so important to get this. These constraints, they are not personal failings. They're not character flaws. They are often really practical, real-world burdens. Things like chronic pain, not having enough money to pay rent, being socially isolated, or carrying around unprocessed trauma. And here's the beautiful part. When you remove one of these constraints, your natural capacity just emerges. It was there all along, just suppressed. So let's bring this all together. I want to leave you with one last really powerful metaphor for how we can think about those periods of intense crisis in our lives. Think about a caterpillar. It goes into a chrysalis, and inside that chrysalis, it's not pretty. It's basically goo, a total dissolution of its old self. It looks like chaos, but we know it's a necessary natural process for it to become a butterfly. So, what if a mental health crisis isn't a disease? What if it's actually a natural process of transformation, a chrysalis phase, that has just been interrupted? This model suggests that what we often label as a breakdown is really just this incredible transformation process getting stuck because it doesn't have the right conditions, the right ground to finish the job. And that leaves us with this final, incredibly empowering thought. Maybe healing isn't about adding more things, more treatments, more pills. Maybe it's about systematically identifying and removing the obstacles that are already there. You are not your constraints. They are not who you are. So the real question this framework asks us all to consider is, what beautiful, powerful thing would emerge if those constraints were finally removed?